we are now in a new emerging platform technology space that is the blockchain. So far, the major use cases of the blockchain have been cryptocurrencies. But what we're trying to do as Dapper Labs is bring the blockchain to a more mainstream audience. And we've looked back in these historical platforms, Facebook, mobile, et cetera, and saw that gaming and entertainment was that pathway to onboard and get a mainstream user interested in using that technology.
Layer 1 is a podcast and community dedicated to helping you master all things crypto. We'll be bringing you the best interviews with project executives, technical analysis for trading of the most popular cryptocurrencies, and insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes.
As you join us each episode, you're going to hear about tokens, fundraisers, investments, and even crypto conspiracies. But please remember that nothing we say should be considered financial or legal advice.
Come join us on this journey and welcome to Layer 1.
All right, guys, it is another episode of oh my goodness. Good morning, good evening, good night. It is another episode of Layer 1 Podcast. We're happy to have you guys in the channel. Man, this is going to be another phenomenal episode. We had Reserve on a couple days ago, and now we have Flow, we have Dapper Labs. This is a behemoth. We've been a fan of Dapper for forever, it seems like. So it's going to be an awesome episode. I've got Dimitri here with me. So Dimitri, what's going on, man?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. There's, obviously interesting stuff going on in DeFi with the YAM. I've been watching that, tracking it. But today's a new day when we have an exciting guest, like you mentioned, Flo. I'm excited to learn more about where they're heading, where they are now. Obviously, we were involved in TopShot, so that was experience that was amazing. Looking at you, Q, looks like you love to surf by the sign behind you. You're still at the shore.
Yeah, I'm still here at the shore. No, I'm on vacation still, guys. The next interview you see, even Layer 1 Live, we will have our regular setup, but I am here for one more day, so appreciate you dealing with me. But to our guest of honor here, not anything about me, we have Maher. He is the head of partnerships at Flow. The team that is building a scalable blockchain for gaming, for NFTs, for collectibles, all of these cool things. We do a ton of research before these interviews, and we didn't have to do much research for Dapper because we're so involved with what they've got going on. But we talked enough. Mickey, what's going on?
Hey, I'm glad to be here. I didn't know you were on vacation, so I didn't know I was going to be jealous on this podcast. But yeah, I'm excited to be here and excited to get the word out on Flow and answer any questions anyone may have.
Before we get into Flow, because that's going to be a great conversation, let's talk about your background coming into tech, maybe coming into crypto. How did you find yourself at Dapper?
I've been in gaming or kind of on the tangentials to gaming for the better part of 13 years. I've kind of always followed the new emerging technology or platforms of gaming. I started out when Facebook opened their platform to apps, and that kind of morphed into a gaming platform, as we all know. Then I moved over to mobile as the smartphone started to explode, and Apple and Android started becoming a very viable gaming platform. I was in there early, and then I kind of had a couple different roles or different companies within the mobile gaming space. And then when I left my last company in the mobile gaming space, I was kind of looking at what was happening next, what's exciting. I think mobile gaming was, it had almost reached its peak at that point in terms of growth. I mean, it's still growing, but it's not the excitement and hockey stick growth that I saw it through the time that I was in it. So I was looking for what was next. VR was kind of a thing at that point. But I had known and seen CryptoKitties. I was well aware of CryptoKitties. This is, back in 2017. So February of 18, I met up with one of the co-founders of Dapper Labs, who, in fact, was an old friend of mine from the mobile gaming space. And I didn't even realize he was a founder of Dapper Labs and CryptoKitties. So just meeting up casually for a drink, and he mentioned what he was doing. And I was like, hey, I've heard of that. That's pretty cool. I was taking some time off from work at that point. So just started opening a discussion, and, a couple months later, I ended up at Dapper Labs in a partnerships and revenue role.
Nice revenue. That's what we're all looking for in crypto right now. So you guys are doing a killer job. Before we hit on Flow and before we hit on Dapper a little bit more and go in depth, you have that background in mobile gaming. So where was mobile gaming back during that genesis, and where has it come now? And so are you bullish on mobile gaming? Are you not? What is the situation there?
Oh, I'm extremely bullish on mobile gaming. I think those touchscreen platforms, whether it's the tablets or the phones, are perfect mechanism for gaming. But that wasn't always the case. I got in really early, and some of the first mobile games were just very simple mobile games that would have a mass market user or mainstream user just explore the technology, because moving from your keyboard and your desktop or your console gaming platforms with a joystick or a controller is a much different experience than a mobile gaming experience. So I think the mainstream audience of mobile gaming was ushered in by very simple games that allowed for exploration of the technology. And I think you see that a lot with emerging tech and emerging platforms, where games are kind of an avenue or a bridge to onboard and get users comfortable with that technology. Facebook gaming kind of really hooked into the viral channels and the technology and the notifications of that platform. And I think gaming really helped Facebook in their growth phase. It's not a thing anymore, but I think partly Facebook was built on the backs of those gaming companies. And frankly, a lot of those gaming companies like Zynga made a really, really great business off the Facebook platform. So it was a great partnership between Facebook and gaming in the beginning. But where I'm leaning towards this is that we are now in a new emerging platform technology space that is the blockchain. So far, the major use cases of the blockchain have been cryptocurrencies. But what we're trying to do as Dapper Labs is bring the blockchain to a more mainstream audience. And we've looked back in these historical platforms, Facebook, mobile, et cetera, and saw that gaming and entertainment was that pathway to onboard and get a mainstream user interested in using that technology. We don't feel like blockchain will be any different, and the first hundreds of millions of users that onboard onto blockchain technology is probably going to be through some social gaming or entertainment experience. So some app that's soft and friendly that onboards your mothers and fathers, lawyers and doctors.
Yeah, and that thesis almost played out in real time in 2017 with CryptoKitties. Certainly, it was kind of hampered by the technology of Ethereum, but in the crypto industry, as far as adoption goes, that definitely had some success. I know that metric is not relative to outside world adoption, and that's one thing I want to touch on. You guys have always been kind of synonymous with making easy to use and really good onboarding games. So what's that process look like when you're creating a new game? You guys just seem to be different than everyone else that's building things in the blockchain space for these maybe non-crypto users, but also kind of pandering to the crypto users as well.
Yeah, it's true. And if I'm being honest, we have an unfair advantage, and it's a credit to the CEO and the founding team. So I think a lot of people know this, but just for the sake of ensuring that it's out there and clear, where Dapper Labs came from is a venture studio called Axiom Zen that's based in Vancouver, Canada. And Axiom Zen has been around for many years, and many of the team members at Dapper Labs have worked together for, 6, 7, plus years, right? So these are teams that have worked together really closely, figured out how to work well together, figured out where people's talents lie and how to get the most out of each other, right? And the process for us coming up with CryptoKitties, and frankly, most of the things we come up with, was born out of Axiom Zen. So you could call Axiom Zen a venture studio, which looks at emerging technologies, which looks at new platforms and says, hey, let's put some product people let's form a small group of people, product designers, engineers, and let's see what we can build on top of these emerging technologies. So in 17, when the crypto craze was going on, it was obvious blockchain was going to be a thing, right? So Axiom Zen pumped out a number of different blockchain projects in all kinds of different verticals, because even today we still feel like some of these use cases will be viable use cases now or in the future. And one of these things was taking a friendly soft IP with some gaming mechanics, launching it on what we call the consumer blockchain, and to drive mass adoption or mainstream audience to that platform. So a lot of that methodology of Axioms and kind of testing MVPs and concepts, getting user feedback, killing projects that don't work, pivoting to where we see, where we see the opportunity or where we see the users resonating to, is really like you said, the ethos of what Dapper Labs is. And again, it comes from many, many years of building process and a lot of the core team members working together.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic story. And unfortunately, I missed the CryptoKitties phase myself, so I didn't get a chance to participate in that. But I did follow the Dapper and everything you guys been doing, which is fantastic. And really, the NBA shot, something that really caught my attention when I first got into it and got the access to it. It was very interesting how easy it is to set up an account and then start essentially buying some of these collectibles. You can use your card or you can, use crypto. Like, it's very simple in that way. And I was very impressed. So, speaking of what you mentioned is the users' feedback that you guys been collecting through all these blockchain projects that you guys been having, that obviously, helps you to build something, very user-friendly and continuously progress. What is the initial feedback that you guys are hearing about the NBA TopShot right now? And kind of, where are we right now? It is in the early access. When are you guys planning to start opening up the doors to maybe more people and so on, and maybe start releasing new packs for the TopShot?
Yeah, I think getting into specific timelines is probably a dangerous game right now. But in terms of the feedback from the initial user base is excellent. People love it. And I think we've published the numbers. The numbers prove that out. There's very few users and a lot of revenue. And these users are, CryptoKitties fanatics, blockchain dApp fanatics, folks that have been in the space and have engaged in the space for a long time. So they're very active and helpful with feedback. So what we want to do is we want to build the best experience possible for not only those core users, but for a mainstream NBA fan and an NBA user. So, we're taking it one step at a time. And in each step, we're incorporating user feedback, user comments, new ideas into that next phase. So what is the timeline? It's a slow rollout, and those rollouts are basically taking into consideration what the user feedback is, how much we want to incorporate it, and how difficult it is to incorporate it, and what, whether it's a mass overhaul, which I can tell you the NBA TopShot experience doesn't need any overhauls. These are subtle tweaks. So you should be seeing it opening up to more and more users pretty quickly here, more in the near term than the long term.
Yeah, we actually took part in one of the sales that you guys had, and it was an amazing experience. We got to open the cards, and we got to see the highlights on the back, and it comes with stats and different features and different rarities and things like that. So definitely everything you want to see from a collector's standpoint and more. The one thing I want to touch on is that $12 million investment that you guys secured from some of these NBA superstars, because that seems like it's going to play into your kind of process in rolling these out to just traditional NBA fans, maybe fans that have no idea what the blockchain looks like. So are you placing any roles on these NBA stars to kind of bust this out to some of their fans and things like that?
I mean, I don't think, we're not placing any roles on anyone. There's no
Yeah.
contractual provisions with these NBA stars to promote it. But I think you can kind of read the tea leaves. If they're interested in investing in it, they believe in it and they love what we're doing. And I think organically, they'll probably want to promote it. But there's no obligation to promote it. But I just think, look, you know, if they're putting their money into it, they might as well put their sweat equity into it as well, in terms of as much sweat equity as there is in a tweet or giving their fans, you know, a notification. But yeah, I mean, just in general, like working with the league, like the NBA, the goal here is, you know, to open these types of experiences up to a mainstream audience. And the NBA has a very mainstream audience globally, which is also important. I think the number of fans the NBA has globally is well over 1 billion, and it may even be over 1.5 billion. So that's a lot of addressable market for an interesting blockchain collectible and gaming experience. So, you know, between the NBA, between the number of, you know, high profile investors Dapper has, including these NBA stars, we should be able to, when ready, we should be able to reach a large audience, I would say.
Yeah, and there's definitely a ton of other partnerships you guys have. UFC is one of them that I'll just mention off the top of my head. One of the NFT, or at least the NFT dreamer in us, can kind of dream that there will be NBA Topshot kind of cards in people's phones when they go to games, and maybe NBA 2K can somehow be involved where you can bring a card into the actual game. So all cool things that us NFT enthusiasts want to see. But like, kind of before we get into that rabbit hole at all, if we ever make it down, I did want to touch on flow, because we kind of like skipped over that really quick. So you guys obviously had all those problems with Ethereum back in the day. We see Ethereum having some gas issues today. Dimitri can maybe touch on that.
Yeah.
But so take us through the process. When was the genesis of kind of the conversation around, okay, we need to build our own blockchain here. We're not going to build on anybody else, like any of the scalable blockchains. We're going to build our own. And how has that process kind of played itself out? And when can we expect mainnet launch? I know you don't like to set those hard dates, but what can you give us?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple of questions in there. So let me address the Ethereum one first. You know, I don't like to categorize our relationship with Ethereum as we've had a number of issues with it. We built something on Ethereum that Ethereum wasn't necessarily designed to support. So it's as much our fault as it is the technology's fault, right? We wanted to see what we could do with that technology in terms of a mainstream audience, right? So that said, there is a reason we built Flow. It's because that CryptoKitties, which was meant to be a test, and it became much more of a test. And if you want to talk about scale, as much as you can get scale on the existing blockchains, CryptoKitties was at scale. But when you looked at the real live data and what was happening on CryptoKitties, it was very obvious that the way Ethereum existed in that moment, it would be impossible for us to meet any of our goals. The user onboarding funnel was an absolute disaster, right? You've got, you know, your typical app or gaming funnels with conversion rates. The conversion rate from, you know, website hit to actual user was just abysmal. And we can all figure out why, right? Between the friction, the high friction in onboarding, having to install another service, whether it's MetaMask or Dapper Wallet, you know, paying gas fees, all of that stuff is just a non-starter, I would say, for a mainstream audience. And you know, and I use scale in quotes because compared to traditional gaming, nothing in blockchain is really at scale. But let's just say at scale, we crashed, or we slowed the Ethereum network down to a halt, right? So it's like a catch-22. Even if the user onboarding funnel was decent, as soon as those users got in, the Ethereum network goes down, right? So it was just a two-pronged problem that we were we were committed to fixing. And frankly, the way we went about fixing it initially was we worked closely with the Ethereum Foundation, had meetings with those folks. We looked at different layer 2 and layer 1 solutions that were out in the market that were mostly being built to address the scalability issue. And what we found was that if we wanted to put something, and the NBA thing didn't exist then, but just for example, if we wanted to put something like the NBA on any of these solutions, it just would have never worked. So that led us down the inevitable path to having to build the blockchain for games, entertainment, and open worlds. So we could put our own experiences that we wanted to do first, but support the entire ecosystem and market for those builders and creators who wanted to build interesting, fun, entertaining experiences in the blockchain. So it was just, we had our needs from real data that we saw and how CryptoKitties users behaved and what their needs and behaviors were on that game. And we built Flow specifically to improve on that and to meet those users' demands, whether it's onboarding, scalability, cost of gas, how gas is paid. All of those things are built out to support millions of users and a mainstream audience.
Gotcha. Yeah. We met Benny back in the day in New York. We were specifically talking to him about some of these issues that Q brought up with Ethereum, and it was interesting to hear his perspective about it as well. We were trying to talk to him about switching to a different blockchain that we were working with at a time. Overall, I think the CryptoKitties side, when you guys did this, pretty much benchmarked Ethereum network, and it pointed out something very big in terms of, hey, this can be clogged up, and just when it scales, there's going to be many issues, and therefore we had other networks that are competing, coming out for that market share. Hey, listen, we're much faster. We're not going to have this issue. Come do it here, and so on. And that's typically the idea for these other, protocols that exist. Let's say, ETH has its own segment, and then other protocols will maybe have their own segments as well. But it seems like we're noticing more and more, companies that are building out their own protocols, their own blockchains, rather than kind of going to, some of these other ones that kind of figured out the scaling already, like, maybe EOS and so on, all those others. So people are still expecting these companies to move over, but it seems like they're kind of setting up their own stuff. Is there kind of the reason behind that? Do you think, that is happening? That it's better to, internalize it than go with the existing ones?
I mean, I can't speak to the motivations of others. There are different motivations of why folks do different things. But what I'll tell you is that we fully explored the market, the existing market, and even the concepts that were being thrown around at that time. And really what we found is that most of the newer blockchains that were being conceived or built at that point were trying to solve specifically for scalability. Okay, none of them were solving for UX, UI, onboarding, which is as much of a problem as scalability. And frankly, the scalability solutions were being built with a lot of sacrifice. Which makes building projects on the blockchain interesting at all. Whether that's the decentralization aspect, security, the composability aspect, things like that were being sacrificed for the sake of scale. And we didn't feel like those were good trade-offs. So we wanted to build a real blockchain experience, one that's composable, one that's secure, one that's truly decentralized, while also fixing scalability, while also creating a superior mainstream UX UI.
Yeah, so I'm sure we could kind of drop the white paper in the description for you guys to look at the actual tech, and we won't really get deep into that tech. But what does Mainnet look like in 2021 or late 2020 when you guys do end up launching? At least that's kind of the timeline I kind of remember off of the top of my head. What does the composability on Flow look like in a year, 2 years time? What does the Flow network look like in that time, hypothetically, if everything goes well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. What I will clarify though is Flow is live with a beta mainnet, so you can build and launch on Flow. The beta portion of it is there's a couple facets of the beta portion. I think the most important thing to note for builders is we're going to be approving smart contracts that are pushed live on the mainnet for a period of time, just to ensure that, because we've designed our own smart contract language cadence, and we want to make sure that these smart contracts are secure, the users that are using them are safe, that we're aware of all the potential bugs or security holes potentially in our smart contracts. So we want to take a safe approach, right? So you can Flow's mainnet is live in beta. You can build, you can push, you can build live experiences now. But as we, again, it's our methodology, we launch slowly, test, get user feedback, and we'll be launching slowly over the next 12 months, right? If smart contracts are being built, nothing's going wrong, we're going to fully launch open source sooner than later. But if a lot of work needs to be done and we need to improve things, it might be slower, right? But sometime over these next 12 months here, it'll be a completely open blockchain and out of beta mainnet and a fully live mainnet, right? So, but I just want to be clear, you can build and mainnet is live at this point. You had a second part of that question is, what does it look like next year? Look, we've already got the NBA, we've got the UFC, you may have seen Dr. Seuss. Dapper Labs is going to be building a lot of projects that are going to bring in a lot of users. But even on top of that, I've got a pipeline of hundreds, high hundreds of application developers, gaming, DeFi, collectibles, etc., looking to build on Flow right now. So I think by this time next year, you're going to have a very, very active and robust Flow ecosystem. I have no doubt about that.
That's awesome. And it's awesome that you're getting so many inbound kind of requests to be building on Flow. What is that? I'm interested though. What does that outbound process look like when you go to a brand that's as big as the NBA, the UFC, Dr. Seuss, and you say, hey, why don't you try out this blockchain thing? What does that process look like? You don't have to get into specifics, but what does it look like? I think a lot of us are interested in kind of those conversations that you have with people that are in those big enterprise and big companies.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just like that. I go and I say, hey, why don't you try out blockchain? And they're like, yes, where do we sign? That's exactly how it works.
It's that easy.
No, I mean, very easy. Look, through our network, through our investors, through the reputation of not only Axiom Zen, but also CryptoKitties, Dapper Labs, we have access to and spoken to many of the largest IP holders and brands in the world. So part of it is, like anything else, we try and we learn, right? So maybe the initial pitches to these brands and IP holders a couple of years ago didn't go so well, but we do have inherent knowledge as a company on how to talk to these people and what they value and what they want to bring to their fan base. So we had a built-in knowledge of that. So they went better than you might think of just walking in cold. But we've learned some of, by doing some of this experience, what the benefits of building on the blockchain are. We've learned from these big brands feedback on what they're looking for and why they would want to do something on the blockchain, right? So it's an iterative process, but I will tell you at this point, what these IP holders, what these brands are looking for, I think there's a lot, but one thing is, in the way we pitch it, is the blockchain and the way the economy works and the true ownership aspect of some of the assets, brands view this as an alignment of incentives with their fans, right? A brand and their fans can align incentives, and they can create this marriage that's more intertwined than just transactional. And brands are always interested in that. They want to fully engage their fan base and build on technologies that are as engaging as possible, right? And they want to be on the cutting edge of that. So that's part of it. And another part of it is the blockchain, and it opens up another digital revenue stream for these folks, right? So you may see at some point physical collectible market diminish a little bit while things move onto digital. And IP holders, especially ones that have a large collectible revenue stream, they want to be caught with their pants down, so to speak. And there's already substantial revenue opportunity on the blockchain, in our opinion, and we're able to. These brands are buy into this opinion that's only going to get larger, and it's only going to grow over time. So the revenue stream is an important aspect of it as well.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I just want to also kind of clarify, can you give us some insight into how the flow token is going to be used in the network? Do we have any information about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's similar to Ethereum. The utility flow token will have plenty of utility. It will be Flow's a proof of stake network, so it'll be used for staking. There's a gas type of equivalent to Flow, so it'll be used to pay gas costs, transaction costs, account creation. We have an account system within Flow, so account creation, and then the users can go in and transact, buy NFTs with the Flow token, that type of thing. So there is plenty of utility, and I would say the utility mirrors pretty closely to what you would see ETH and the utility of ETH.
And then also, I guess, next question with that, with the gas fees, right? We see the Ethereum gas fees are going through the roof. If we see, once we see the Flow network scale up, when we start having more transactions, especially, NFT markets, there's a lot of tiny transactions that can occur, right? And gas fees can really eat that up. So, would you say that Flow is going to have much lower gas fees and they can handle those transactions better, or?
So the way we've set it up is there's two answers to this question. One is the gas fees in themselves are magnitudes lower than the Ethereum gas fees. And the thought behind this is we're building a mainstream blockchain. So there conceivably should be magnitudes more transactions flowing through Flow. Therefore, we can afford to pay magnitudes, or the node operators can afford to earn less gas in terms of fees for processing these transactions, because they're going to make up for it much more in scale, right? So gas is very, very, very cheap on Flow. But I would also say one thing that we learned from Ethereum, and one thing we built natively into Flow, is this account model. And what this allows for is for anyone to sign transactions or pay gas on behalf of anyone else. So if a game developer wants to build a free-to-play game, let's say, without gas fees, they can seamlessly and easily pay for all of their users' gas. Mm-hmm. They can cohort it out and pay for certain users' gas and not others, or they can pay for the first X number of transactions for all users. So we make it very seamless for Dapper Labs, for the developer, for another user, et cetera, to pay gas fees on behalf of other users. And the fact that gas fees are so cheap makes it much more palatable to a developer to be willing to do that.
Yeah, so we've seen other proof of stake protocols kind of take this similar approach, right? They kind of rolled out the gate and they said, and I'll use EOS for example, if you have a certain amount of stake, it's almost like quote unquote gas on the network, or some type of energy that you can use on the network. And I'm putting those in hard quotes because I'm generalizing a bit. But then you eventually saw the dApps start to pay for their users, because again, it plays back into the idea that their users aren't comfortable paying, at least outside users aren't comfortable having this situation where they're paying to do a transaction. And that's certainly important. A ton of other like technology pieces that we could touch on. The one portion that I wanted to get, and it kind of meshed into the other question I was asking, is like, what subsectors are you guys looking at with NFTs to kind of bring in? We've seen art obviously be a huge one. We've seen kind of the metaverses playing out with Decentraland, with crypto voxels. We've seen a ton of subsectors. Collectibles are another one you guys are obviously interested in. So what subsectors interest you specifically within NFTs, and then maybe Dapper as a whole?
In reality, Flow right now, our target is games, entertainment, collectible experiences. That we think that anything that has to do with NFTs or ERC 721s belong on Flow. Not everyone's going to agree with that, but we were the creators of the ERC 721 standard. We know this better than anyone. We've built this out specifically because of our knowledge of the Ethereum blockchain and some of the challenges there, right? So our opinion is that NFT experiences should be on Flow, targeting games, entertainment at first, but open work composability is a huge aspect of what we're doing here. And we want to see these metaverses and open world experiences kind of expand on Flow a little bit. I mean, we saw it on Ethereum with CryptoKitties and something we call the Kittyverse at a much lower level. And we think based on how we've built out the smart contract infrastructure, the scalability, the ease of onboarding, these metaverse type of experiences or the open world type of experiences will be a very obvious use case to be built on Flow.
Gotcha. And when you talk about targeting, maybe some of these developers to come over to the network, and build and so on, what kind of, devs or people that you're looking to attract? Those that are already funded and you kind of have everything in place and they're ready to build and just picking a network, to do it on, to do what, they're trying to, whatever sector they're trying to expand, or are you open to those that are, let's say, not funded, have an idea, have developers, but looking for funding, and maybe there's a way for them to get the funding, maybe from the network foundation or maybe through your connections and so on, right? Which ones are you guys where do you guys fall?
We don't fall anywhere. We want high quality developers who really buy into the vision of Flow. I would say that with my experience in gaming, it's very apparent that these new emerging technologies or platforms are built on the backs of indie developer hobbyists who are passionate about the technology, who understand the technology and have great ideas to build on that technology, right? So I love hearing great ideas. I love people that are passionate about Flow and understand the value that Flow can bring to the company. We have the funding grants discussions all the time. We want to help our passionate developers as much as possible. And I think, we've got 4 into what we call the Flow Accelerator program, and they can speak to the help that we're bringing them. But, like any platform, I think Flow is going to be mostly built by these smaller game teams that are really passionate about the technology and understand it. And they'll be able to grow really quickly and start getting the more enterprise level incumbent larger game companies, bringing more awareness to those folks to the space. And then eventually it'll look like mobile. The early entrants were small, scrappy, grew really quickly. And then a couple of years in, all the incumbent game companies kind of followed, either acquired those companies or tried to buy their way in. You see this on new platforms all the time, and this will be no different. So long-winded answer to your question is, we're open to folks that have passion, have good ideas, and are interested in exploring flow, and are going to bring an entertaining, valuable experience to the community and to the user base that exists there.
Yeah, that kind of raises an interesting discussion point in that the big AAA studios, the Microsofts or the Sonys, they just aren't in this yet at full scale. And you mentioned it yourself there with mobile. So what's the deal here when Microsoft gets in and all these bigger, larger enterprises start to make their way and maybe start to create their own or integrate crypto into their own situations? How does that affect Dapper? Is that a situation where Dapper, I don't want to say you guys are being sold, but if you've already seen this in the mobile section, how does this play out in blockchain once the bigger companies, once the Xboxes, once the Microsofts, once all of these companies start to come in? What does that mean for Dapper and the smaller indies?
Well, no, I mean, I think the early pioneers of the space will be looked at as the thought leaders, and those companies already come to us for ideas and thoughts on the space and try to tap into the expertise. And, as soon as there's substantial revenue behind that thought leadership, is when you see these AAA studios or the enterprises start really paying attention, right? So, we're a pioneer in the space. CryptoKitties is already a proof case that everyone points to in this space. And we get approached all the time by these folks just for our knowledge base and to potentially work with us for ideas, et cetera. As the NBA is successful, as more of these initiatives that we're bringing to light and our third-party developers are bringing to light on the Flow blockchain, the early pioneers of Flow and the space in general will have the brands and AAA studios knocking at their door to work with or for advice.
I love that answer. And especially your answer earlier about the metaverse as well, because I think that's a really good marriage and you kind of need that composability when you have digital items. It's awesome to show them in a digital format like a metaverse. So I'm going to throw one more question at you before Dimitri hits you with our book recommendation question. What has been your most favorite time at Dapper? I feel like it's such a cool company to work for. Over the last 3-4 years, what is the main moment, maybe main, event? What's been a really cool memory from your time at Dapper over these past 3-4 years?
I'm just too immersed in it right now to reflect. So you might want to ask me in 5 years. I'm going to say the road of launching NBA Topshot was a long one, and actually seeing it come to life and seeing how high quality and what a great job the people worked on it did with it, and how much buzz that's being generated around the company because of that. I'm going to say the best time. I was not personally involved in TopShot all that much. But from a company standpoint, that's probably my most proud moment from a company standpoint. Not a personal standpoint, but the company standpoint is really what matters at this point. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was great. Such an exciting moment to launch that project.
Yeah, absolutely. I was excited to get into it. When I got the access, I was instantly hooked. As I was out opening these packs, I was like, "Wow, I'm addicted. I want to buy more." So I bought quite a bit.
We make it easy. You can just drop your credit card in, and
yeah, just one click, and then you got cool animation, got the music. It's fantastic. As Q mentioned, we are coming up on that question that we ask all our viewers. What is your book recommendation that you would share with our community? It could be related to crypto. Not related to crypto, something you read recently or a while ago. Anything goes.
Yeah, I don't recommend books on crypto, and the reason why is by the time they're published, they're outdated.
Yep.
I'm serious. I've got a bookshelf back here. I've got 3 crypto books. I couldn't even finish them because I was like, I know all this art. This is 2 years old. It's just moving too fast. So I have not read a crypto book that I would recommend because they become outdated. The book that I read every year and has had the biggest impact on me in my life is a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. It's about, have you heard of it? Do you know it?
Yeah, I think Jordan Peterson has actually talked about it before. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know why I would have heard that name, but I definitely have not read it, but I've heard it mentioned.
He probably has because it's kind of up his alley, but it's a psychologist, psychiatrist that was in Nazi concentration camps during the Holocaust. And he writes about that experience from a human and philosophical level that only a well-educated, deep thinker, someone really in touch with human psychology could articulate so well. So it's a very, in my opinion, a life-changing book. And I was recommended it about 10 years ago as a life-changing book. And I will share that sentiment for sure.
Amazing recommendation, and it's been an amazing episode, Mickey. We'll have all of the links to Flow, to Dapper, to your social media in the description below. Thank you for coming on the episode. We'll really looking forward to having you guys back on in like 6 months time to a year to discuss everything that's happening on Flow, man. We cannot wait just from a user standpoint. So thank you again for coming on the episode.
Sure. I'm glad I didn't make any predictions or bold predictions here, so you can call me on it a year from now. So I was evasive there on purpose.
I appreciate you coming by, Mickey. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.